The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and I'm so excited to be here with you this morning. We got a big show planned for you and lots going on. But I want to welcome all of you. If you are new to the show, I describe myself as a proud pony, a parent of a neurodiverse individual. And I'm happy to be here our mission here at Autism Network and at Autism Live is always to provide and spread information and inspiration to that entire autism community that starts with individuals who are themselves on the autism spectrum, but includes everyone who loves them. And I consider myself very firmly in that second category, someone who loves many individuals who are on the spectrum and identify as being neurodiverse, neurodivergent, all the different words. We're thrilled that we're here because we got an amazing guest today. James Schulz is going to be joining us in just a little while. He is the CFO and founder of Scioto, I hope I've said it right, Biosciences, and we're going to be talking about what they're doing that has to do with our jargon of today, which is gut microbiome, which we're going to get to in just a second. So all of that is coming up. If you are somebody who geeks out on this kind of thing, boy, is today the show for you, because we're going to be talking about how this interplays with autism and an autism spectrum diagnosis and some of the things that come with that. So all of that to be revealed as we move through this. I want to take just a second to remind all of you that we are live right now. It is Wednesday, July 10th. Already we are at the 10th of July. Didn't that seem like it went really fast? The year is 2024 and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and about a dozen other sites. Our fabulous Chris Desmond is showing you on our screen if you are watching live. For those of you who are listening in podcast, which we know that the vast majority of you, that's how you take us with you by listening in podcast. We welcome you. We hope that you are finding all the places to download the free podcast. It is downloadable for free. We like to remind you that it's kind of it's an interesting thing. It's not actually free, but it's free to you. And how do we make that happen? That's why you have sponsors who will interrupt your program when you're listening to it on podcast. We hope that you will embrace those sponsors and say, hey, thanks for paying for this so that I could get this information for free. We do know that some of you have written in and said, yes, but sometimes I'm doing this when I'm running and I prefer to listen with no sponsors and I'd be willing to pay a little bit. You absolutely have the option to do that by going to glow.fm/autism live. When you do that, it's a $5 a month pay that you do. It's actually less if you do it by the year, but $5 a month if you want to do it that way. When you do that, you get everything that the Autism Network does, and you get it ad-free. It will automatically show up where you choose for it to show up, and you won't have any ads for that simple low price. I do want to say that Autism Network, that means Autism Live, that means Ask Dr. Dream. You're getting all of the parent to parents. You're getting all of the side shows we do, the Let's Talk movies, the Let's Talk everything with Rachel and Shannon. We are still in gearing up for Autismo y Comunidad. And I hope you guys are checking out our newest podcast, which is Today's Hyperfixation. And that is hosted by none other than Atticus Jackson. I hope that you will check that out. And the other show that we do, and we haven't done as many of them recently because we were working on Today's Hyperfixation, is Stories from the Spectrum, which is only content produced by individuals who identify as being neurodiverse, neurodivergent. So there we go. We hope that you'll check out everything that we do. If you would like to visit our YouTube channel, which is very robust, we've been doing this show for over 14 years. So we've got a lot of content there and you get visuals and the whole thing, and that is also free. So check us out on YouTube. We encourage you to like, share, review. Oh, there's nothing better than when you write a review of our show and post it on places. Boy, that really makes us happy. And we love to hear from you. So Autism Journey with Elijah has written in and said, good morning, heading to LA this weekend. We cannot wait. I'm guessing that you're coming to the Autism Rocks concert. That's wonderful. Well, I'll get to meet you in person. That will be truly, truly wonderful. So woohoo. If you didn't watch the show on Monday, we had Alex Lynn on. He is the producer of the Autism Rocks concert, which is happening this Saturday at Universal City Walk. It's a free concert with a lot of people on the bill that are performers that identify as being neurodiverse, neurodivergent. And they do that in conjunction with the Doug Flutie organization. So definitely check that out. Free. It's in the amphitheater in City Walk at Universal. So a wonderful thing. Okay. Well, I'm very excited that you will be there. Love your blue hearts this morning. Well, I want to get into the jargon of the day because I feel like we need it as a precursor for our guest, who's coming up in a few minutes. But I also want to say, and I remind people on a regular basis, that we have lots of experts who join us on the show and talk about a wide variety of different things. And I always try to remind you that I am not an expert in the field of autism, nor am I pretending to be at all. I like to be somebody who's curious and who's constantly asking questions. I like to think of because I'm a former teacher, I like to think of myself as sitting in the front row, raising my hand a lot. And when we do jargon of the day, my goal there is to introduce terms that sometimes we hear them all the time. And we're like, I don't really know if I understand what that is. And I don't understand how that might play a role for me or somebody that I love on the spectrum. And I like to give it to us. We always, in the beginning, we used to do this, and I would give you the most jargony definition first, and then I would make fun of it, and then we would give you a definition that maybe you could start to understand if you didn't have a degree in psychology or neuroscience or things like that. Definitions have gotten better, but we're still working on, the goal is for it to be something that we have at least a beginning understanding of, so that we can say, oh, this is something I want to know more about. This is something that could affect my day. This is something that I'm not ready for right now, right? But we can say that with an informed opinion. Okay, so let's wade in now. I don't think we've ever done this before, which is crazy, 14 years to talk about gut microbiome. Let's take a look at what our actual definition is. And there it is. Your gut microbiome. And by the way, this is coming to us. I got this from the clevelandclinic.org. Your gut microbiome is a microscopic world within the world of your larger body. The trillions of microorganisms that live there affect each other and their environment in various ways. They also appear to influence many aspects of your overall health, both within your digestive system and outside of it. I loved this definition because, I don't know, it gave me a visual. I started picturing this universe living in all of our bodies, and largely in our intestines, right? And thinking of it that way and thinking of it as this environment, like we always want to take care of the environment, right? And a storm can come through and change the way the environment looks, right? I don't know, that was really helpful to me. But let's take a look at what our other definition is and see if it's got a little bit different nuance. This one was from Wikipedia, right? The gut is the main location of the human microbiome. The gut microbiota has broad impacts, including effects on colonization, resistance to pathogens, maintaining the intestinal epithelium, metabolizing dietary and pharmaceutical compounds, controlling immune function, and even behavior through the gut-brain axis. So let's leave that up for just a second. I know usually the second one is less jargony, but I wanted to show you. This is what Wikipedia had. Wikipedia. I can't talk today. But this is interesting to me because we're going to be talking about colonization of the colon and having the good stuff in there throughout today's show. But I thought it was really interesting because I don't always think about this, resistance to pathogens. So we're talking about your immunity here. Like, how able are you to be exposed to things and to be able to handle it? How about metabolism metabolizing dietary and pharmaceutical compounds. These are like tongue twisters for me today. Think about, for ourselves and for our kiddos, when we're trying to feed them healthily, we're trying to watch dietary things, we're trying to, perhaps your doctor may have prescribed something for you or your child to take, and we have an expectation of how they're going to react in the body. But if the gut microbiome is functioning in a different way because there's been some sort of storm that's come through, this is suggesting that it has completely the possibility of not working the way that you thought it was going to. I find it so funny that in today's world, I know Dr. Grampiche talks about this a great deal, that talk to anybody. Go to any party and talk to anybody. I know it's not considered polite conversation, but talk to them about, hey, how's your intestine doing, right? And I don't know, maybe it's me, but all of my friends and everybody that I know and all of their kids, they have many more problems with their intestinal tract than what I remember when I was, say, 20 years old. I don't remember people talking about all of this and saying, oh, and by the way, we weren't talking about probiotics back then, right? Our guts are working in a different way, which, as Dr. Grampiche will tell you, has at least part of that is from our food supply. That we've done a lot of things in the last 30 years to the food supply that are maybe not the best things. But then it becomes a question of, if your gut microbiome is compromised, if you've had some sort of a storm that has come through, like an illness or something, or you've eaten something that didn't agree with you, that has affected the microbiome, is that something that's going to have an impact on you long term, or is there something that we can do to mitigate that? And of course, many of us look at our kiddos that are on the spectrum, kiddos, teens, adults on the autism spectrum, and we know that they have, just as a population, they have a higher incidence of having intestinal issues. And what's the old Chinese proverb that says, happy gut, happy life? And if one of the things that we want to prioritize for ourselves and for the people that we love on the autism spectrum is happiness, then we certainly have to talk about gut health. So that is what we're going to talk about. Okay. I'm just reading what people have written in. Hi, Sarah. We're so happy that you're here. And they're saying, yay, so lucky that Autism Journey with Elijah. Well, you're not that far away. You can come too. And they said, we'll pick you up on the way. LOL. That's hilarious. So I would love it. As we have this conversation today, and as we welcome our guests, I would love to hear from you guys, because I think those of you who are watching, love to take a little bit of a straw poll about, are gut issues a part of what you're dealing with the individual that you love on the spectrum, or if that's you yourself? Is that a part of the discussion already, or is it a part of the health issue that you're having? Because I remember many years ago when there was finally a corner that was turned, that I feel like there was a whole lot of time that parents were yelling very loudly and saying, the gut has something to do with this, you guys. The gut has something to do with this. Why do our kids all have either, TMI, but we're going to go there today. Why do our kids have terrible diarrhea, or why are they constantly constipated? Why are our kids not having a normal gastrointestinal experience? And parents kept ringing that bell, and everybody was saying, no, it doesn't have anything to do with it. And then finally, money was set aside to begin to study it. And I remember it almost felt like everybody took a deep breath. Because, sometimes I think the autism community, we get there a little bit before the funding, maybe. And everybody's like, oh, okay, they're going to start to find things. And boy, howdy, have they found things over the last 20 years, the things that they've been researching, part of what we're going to talk about today. But I'd love to know from you guys, is this a part of your journey? And it isn't just our kids, because I always ask the parents, are you guys having issues too? Worthwhile to know. But let's talk about our amazing guest today, who's going to be joining us in just a second. James Schulz is the CFO and founder of the Scioto Biosciences. I love that in his bio, he says that he and his bride have been married for 32 years. If you can still be calling somebody your bride and your groom 32 years in, I think you're doing pretty good. They live in Indiana with their 2 grown children, and they love to travel. He is a serial entrepreneur, which I have to know more about because that sounds fascinating to me, who has focused over 20 years of his career on developing new drugs to help people across various diseases improve their lives. He and the Scioto team started the company in 2017 and are working every day to improve the lives of autistic individuals and their caregivers. Well, we love that mission, do we not? So I want to welcome for the first time, but probably not the last time to the show, Jim Schulz. Jim, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm great, and better that you're here because we're always looking for answers, Jim.
I'm going to bring you along with me, Shannon, everywhere we go. When we talk about Scioto to investors and other people, you do a great job of discussing what the gut microbiome is. Very simple, very easy. I'm going to enlist you.
Oh, well, I had the help of Cleveland Clinic and Wikipedia, but I can't. The words are not coming out of my mouth today. But I think, it is one of those terms we just hear over and over and over again, but I don't know that as a community we really embrace how important it is to every aspect of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like that you guys have. Let's start this off by talking about what this company is. I know from your bio that you started it in 2017. What does Scioto Biosciences do? And why did you guys take a particular interest in autism?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like you said, the microbiome controls a lot of our body. And we started the company in 2017 looking at the NICU and babies in the NICU that were born prematurely and what was missing in their GI system. And what we found was there was one specific bacteria called Lactobacillus reuteri, we call it LR, that was missing. And so our scientists and founders at Nationwide Children's Hospital were doing a lot of work on what does this bug do to our body. And so we did a lot of work preclinically and so forth. And we found out that this bug, not just what we showed, but what other people show, has a protective effect to your GI system. And from what we've seen with our data and others, stimulates activity from your gut to your brain. And what we believe it's doing is it's triggering something we call oxytocin, which is called the love hormone. And so it's a very natural way where you would take this, basically it's like a probiotic, you would drink it, and it sends a signal up the vagus nerve to your brain to basically make you feel better. And so that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to try to find a very natural way to provide something to people to help with GI disorders and so forth. And again, the more research we did outside of GI, we found this bacteria was also triggering this oxytocin. And then we said, well, what does oxytocin influence? And then when we looked at additional literature, we saw things around autism, ADHD, and so forth. So that's why we decided to pursue that indication.
I'm loving this. You're already speaking my language because we've been talking. I always say it wrong. I say reuteri, but it's reuteri. That's how you say it.
You know what? I'm not a scientist, so I cannot defer to whatever people feel comfortable saying.
It sounds better the way you say it. But this has sort of been on our radar for a couple of years. So this is very exciting to me. But I have to tell you, it's not easy to find it because we went looking for it. And also there is I want to know how your drug works because I think it works different because a lot of us have been used to taking these pills and maybe not seeing the result that we wanted to. So talk about how your drug works.
Great question there, Shannon. So before I say specifically how it works, when you look at the microbiome world, there's a lot of ways that people are trying to bring new microbiome drugs to market. Some look at 10, 15, 20 different bacteria and try to combine them all together and provide it to people. There's lots of ways to also give it to someone, which we don't need to go to all those details. There's other people that take a bacteria and try to engineer it, right? Tweak it a little bit, change the way it works and see if you can get it to the GI system. Because the biggest problem is getting it to the stomach. The stomach acids destroy a lot of this stuff, especially that you buy over the counter.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not an expert. I can't tell you what probiotics do and don't work when you take them. Everyone's GI is very, very different from birth to an adult. But one of the biggest issues is how do you get that bacteria to the GI to do what it's supposed to do?
Yes.
And so our scientific founders on Nationwide Children's Hospital found a very interesting way to do this. And this is what our patents cover and so forth. But what we do, it's very simple. We take the bacteria and then we take what's called a slurry, almost like a sugar formulation, all very natural products. And it's in 2 little vials. You take those 2 little vials, you shake them up, and then you let it sit a while. And what's happening is that bacteria is being activated, we call it, by the sugar formulation. And this sugar formulation mimics what's in your stomach. So what we're doing is we're telling the bacteria that, hey, you're already in your stomach. Here's the sugars you should be eating before it gets there. That activates the bacteria, that makes it excited, and then you drink it. And so while you drink it, it actually is able to survive the GI tract, survive the stomach acid, get to your stomach lining, see more of those sugars around your stomach lining, and then do what it's supposed to do. So it's a very simple drug, basically. It's the bacteria, the slurry, and you drink it. And you can actually mix it with apple juice, you can mix it with cranberry juice, and you can mix it with water. And that's a lot of the impact we heard from caregivers when we did our phase 1B study with autistic individuals is, thank you for not making this a pill. Thank you for not trying to make me find some way to hide it. Very easy to give, very easy to put into someone's routine.
But also, and this is a very proprietary, correct me if I'm wrong, way that you guys are doing this. This is not the way others are doing this.
Exactly right.
I can think of the example of the mom who wrote in and said, okay, I heard how important it was for my child to take a probiotic, gave them a probiotic, and a day later they pooed the pill. The pill was still intact. And they were like, so, how exactly is this helping my child at all? And then other people, we know, because we talk about this on the show too, sometimes, there is a whole path that you have to go. You've got a child who's impacted and they're having lots of issues, and you need to give them, medicines, but getting them to swallow pills. So you got to stop everything to do a pill swallowing thing that takes 6 weeks, right? So I'm sure people love this, Jim. Okay.
Yeah, and Shannon, I think just to add on to that a little bit is, our phase 1B study that we did with autistic individuals, they were ages 15 to about 26.
Okay.
And then our next study, once we're able to get funding, will be ages 12 and above. And the reason we have to do that is when we work with the FDA, they want to make sure this is safe, right? And we agree with that. We want to make sure this is safe. And so that's why we're going through the FDA route. We're not just going to try to throw this in some bottle and say, hey, go make this work. We're going to actually go through the FDA process. We're going to actually do several clinical studies to get there so we can really show the efficacy of our microbiome delivery system.
Well, and can we talk a little bit about what you've learned so far?
Sure.
Let's talk about that. And I know people will be very excited about the fact that you're going through the FDA, but some will be disappointed too, because that means you can't just run out to CVS and purchase it over the counter.
That's correct.
But I hope everybody embraces that this is because you're being very careful, because our kids' bodies are super important and we want to make sure that everything's working the way it's supposed to be. But let's talk about why people are excited, why there is buzz about this, because you do have some initial results. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we did, like I said earlier on, we did some preclinical studies to make sure we were doing what we're supposed to do. We wanted to make sure where the bug was going, where the bug was being activated, so we could design the actual human study to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And we ran this phase 1B study against just 15 patients at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And basically, the patients took either our drug daily for 4 weeks or a placebo for 4 weeks. And then there was what we called a 2-week washout where you took absolutely nothing. And then you switched and you took either the placebo or you took the drug that we have, depending on what you had before.
Okay.
And all this was completely blinded. We had no idea what was going to happen. And the study was purely just to make sure what we were doing with our formulation was going to be safe. The first priority we want to make sure is keep everyone safe. We don't want any significant issues.
Right.
And so that's what the study was designed to do. And when we finished the study, we were very safe. No significant side effects. It worked exactly how we thought as far as a safety standpoint. But the interesting part is we were using what's called the Vineland 3. And I'm sure a lot of your audience knows what the Vineland 3 is.
Oh, yeah.
There's people that love it. There's people that hate it. I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying that was what we had to use to get some additional data.
Yeah.
And what we wanted to measure was the social ability of the autism people that were taking our drug. We wanted to say, look, could we actually improve social ability or daily living skills? And what we saw was an improvement in social ability and daily living skills. Now, this was not a study designed to be statistically significant. That's what needed to be done, saying, is this statistically significant to really show something? That's what our next study is for. Our phase 1 was truly just to say, hey, do we see anything else outside of safety? Are there any other markers or indications showing that we're working? And we saw the results were actually published in a Nature publication about our phase 1B. And again, we showed an increase in socialization, an increase in daily living skills, and some increase in communication, not as much as we wanted to. But from what we understand is communication comes last, right? A person needs to feel more comfortable in their social settings and their daily living skills before they're willing to communicate more. So we were thrilled with those results.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was just over 4 weeks. We don't know what kinds of, that over 4 weeks you were seeing a difference. What would 4 months do? We don't know yet.
Exactly right. And that was actually the holy cow thing that we saw, because we saw those kind of results in just 4 weeks. Now, not across every person in the study. There were some that did not have a response. And again, our GIs are very different. As you mentioned earlier in the show, from the time you're born or premature versus non-premature, what have you been eating your whole life? There's a lot of things, your environment, that go into it. So this isn't necessarily going to work for everyone, but that's why we wanted to run this.
Absolutely amazing. So you mentioned that you're getting ready to do the next study. Talk to us a little bit about what the next steps are. And because I'm sure that people are going to want to know, are you recruiting for people for the study? What, tell us, give us the whole 411, Jim.
Right. So basically, we're going to be running a study of about 150 patients roughly. And half will be on our drug, and then half will be on placebo. So there won't be this crossover that we had in the phase 1. You'll be randomly selected through the site to either get drug or placebo, and you will be on one or the other daily for about 3 months through the study.
Okay.
And then after we have everyone enrolled and after everyone's been dosed and stuff, we'll get to a final report and see if we have actually improved social ability. So we're hoping to get about 26 clinical sites set up for about 150 patients that we would enroll. I believe this will enroll very quickly. I think, as you mentioned, there's a huge need to try something like this. We know this is a huge unmet need, and we want to get there as quickly as we can. So that's really our goal. We've got to raise the money first. So we're in our process of raising funds to get there. So we can't start the study until we have the money, but that's the goal. It's a phase 2 study, about 150 patients, placebo versus our drug, daily dosing, 3 months, and then see what the activity looks like.
And when do you anticipate, I know it's hard to say because you don't have the funding until you have the funding, but when is your goal to start this next phase?
If we get as soon as we get the funding in, we can start enrollment in, I would say, somewhere between 3 and 6 months.
Okay.
The goal is getting the funding in. I'm hoping we can get funding in the next 6 months. That's what we're trying to drive towards. We're having some conversations out there. I will say, on the downside, and this may not be popular, people may argue with me, so I'm not trying to be controversial here. Autism is not a huge priority right now in the pharmaceutical industries because it is such a large spectrum.
Yeah.
And people are a little hesitant of, well, how do you know who it is and isn't going to work on? And a lot of the money right now in biotech is going towards obesity drugs, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, various areas of oncology, all good purposes, everything that should be supported. There's very little going toward drug development for autism. And so we're kind of the oddball out there also because we're microbiome, right? We're trying to take a very natural approach as opposed to creating some new drug from some new chemical entity. That's very different than historical drug development. So those are some of the roadblocks we run into from a funding standpoint. Is this is microbiome, it's kind of a new area, and autism is a spectrum. How do you know you're going to work in it? I always say, so was depression before Prozac, right? No one was going into depression before Prozac. Prozac hits, and now depression has all kinds of treatments to help people. That's kind of where we are right now. But the goal would be get the funding in the next 6 months, if not sooner, start to enroll 3 months after that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it will enroll quickly. To be clear, that study, you'll be looking for people 12 and up.
12 and up, right. Our goal is to go down to age 2 or 3.
Right.
It really is. I mean, that's the goal. But again, with the FDA, you've got to validate safety. So that's the goal, is not just safety in this next study, but also can we go down to 12-year-olds and above? And we've had some conversations that if this works out well, we could be an expedited approval to even get closer to commercialization. Again, we've got to get the phase 2 done before we can validate all the results, but that's our goal.
We do have some questions, one specifically about your product, wanting to know, will this be a supplement type or a therapeutic type of probiotics?
It'll be a therapeutic. It will not be a supplement. It will not be something you just find on the corner or over the counter. It will be a therapeutic. And part of that is because of the way we have to make it. It's not just the bacteria, it's a specific strain of the bacteria of how it has to be in terms of lyophilized and dried, as well as that slurry part that I told you about. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of safety stuff we got to make sure of. There's a lot of processing we have to do. It's called GMP, good manufacturing practices, that we have to follow with the FDA. But again, all of that is to make sure that we can give the result that people can really see.
Amazing. So you've talked a little bit about roadblocks. I want to know, like, because everybody's going to get excited about this, right? But this is a long-term thing. This isn't a sprint. It's a little bit of a marathon. What do you foresee being the roadblocks, and is there a way that the autism community can help you?
Honestly, right now, our biggest roadblock is financing and funding with people. We have shown the data to a lot of people. They love the data. They actually believe in the data. Again, it's just not a priority for them. Yeah. They know there's an unmet need. They're just not focused on it right now. We've spoken to several foundations. We've spoken to several leaders in industry that want to try to help us. But identifying that group of financiers and funding people, that's the hardest part for us to really get in there.
Are you allowed to crowdsource when it's a research? Is that allowed?
It is. It's something we've considered. I always tell people too, this is a risky business. This isn't a guarantee, right? I've been in this business, like you mentioned, for over 20 years. I've had drugs be successful. I've had drugs fail. This isn't just, this sounds great, let's put money in and it's going to be a winner. There is a chance that this isn't successful after a phase 2. So I always try to make sure people realize, I'm not looking for people to give me your college tuition for your kids and your mortgages and so forth. I would never say that. And you also have to be what's called an accredited investor that is a little bit more, that understands how to do it. And the SEC has regulations and rules around this. So that's why we haven't really approached the crowdfunding standpoint. Yeah. We have considered it, but again, I don't want people to give us money when, this may not work and they're betting, the house on it, I should say.
Well, and I wasn't talking about house money. I was talking about, $10 here, $10 there.
That's I know that. But you'd be amazed at what some people want to try to give you, because there's a lot of desperation out there. And I understand that, and I feel really bad about it. I really want to help. I also have to be realistic and let people know this is drug development. It's not always a guarantee.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lucy has already also written in questions about testing for leaky gut, and are there specific tests we can ask for the pediatrician for testing for leaky gut, and what probiotics do we recommend for our children with ASD? I'm going to say that, there's so many probiotics that are on the market, and your child's, I look at each child as an ecosystem. And, there are some wonderful doctors that we can refer you to that will have suggestions after looking at your child's labs. I really encourage people to go to medmaps.org and find a doctor. we really did not enjoy the pandemic in any way, shape, or form, but there are a couple of benefits that the pandemic gave us. And one of them is that the telehealth rules are so different than they used to be. So a lot of those MedMap doctors that don't live where you are can now do telehealth with you, depending on what your state and your insurance are. But I would look there, Lucy, to ask them specifically about a probiotic right now for ASD because it is so individual. Did you want to say anything to that, Jim, to either of their questions about testing for leaky gut? Have you guys jumped into that at all?
Yeah, it's a good comment. I agree with you. I would say check with your local doctors and so forth. I'm the finance guy. I'm not the scientist, so I'm not going to recommend any specific drug or doctor to go to. Everyone's very unique and different. But one of the reasons why we were attracted to this specific strain of LR, Lactobacillus reuteri, is it's not just this neuroprotective that we see, as we call it, with the oxytocin. It's also GI protective. So a lot of our early studies, like I said, were in the NICU to help potentially, it's another indication we're looking at, to help prevent a very, very nasty disease called necrotizing enterocolitis in premature infants. It's a 50% mortality rate. And what we've seen in our early preclinical models is this is a very protective bacteria around the GI. So it helps, like you mentioned, when you take antibiotics and so forth, it kind of wipes out your gut. This is a very specific strain that helps rebuild that flora, as well as what we think being neuroprotective. So it's a dual action. We were actually looking for some type of GI protectiveness or improvement in our 15 patients in our phase 1 study. Good and bad news with that. Good news is of the 15 patients, no one had any GI disorders to even begin with, which was unusual and odd. You know, really like you've seen and mentioned earlier, diarrhea, constipation, IBD, IBS. We were kind of hoping we would get a few that came in on that study and we could see some improvement. We didn't see any improvement because no one had those issues. But the flip side is we didn't cause any issues either. Right. So we know we were good there.
Well, as I said, we've been talking about that particular strain for a couple of years on the show because we had seen some research about that early on. And we discovered it was very hard to find it on the market, even included in on its own or included in other probiotics. And often when you did find it, it was a product that contained milk, which for some of our community, they're having gastro issues because they are milk sensitive. So are you guys at a point where can you even say, is yours dairy free?
I don't know enough about the minute ingredients in everything, but I can tell you there's no dairy products to my knowledge. It is a pretty simple formulation and drug development that we're putting this together on that should work out pretty well.
Well, and you know, it's not the whole population that's an issue for, but with this particular strain, it ended up being a very big issue. So, but in some respects, we're just going to have to wait until your studies are over but you know, I love that our show has had such longevity that I remember interviewing people early on and they were like, oh, we don't know. And now things are available. So time does hurry on.
Shannon, I don't want to run too far either, but you know, one of the things that we also think with our drug is you have ABA therapy for a lot of these autistic individuals to help them out with their life. We think we could be supplemental to that potentially, as well as when you're done with ABA therapy, what's next? And we think there's a huge unmet need there as well of where we could help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was saying before about how disheartening it was for so many years. If you talked about your child on the spectrum and the gut issues that they were having, people would just roll their eyes. And, you know, there's a very famous mom who said, I don't understand why this is, because why are you acting like what you put into your system doesn't have an impact on your thought process and how you behave? Because sit anybody down and have them drink a pitcher of beer and they are going to see the world in a different way. They're going to speak differently. They're going to act differently. They're going to think differently. So why is that? Why can that be in your universe, but other things cannot be in your universe? I
think it's a big unknown, Shannon. I think it's just because a big unknown people. And I will say I was one of those naysayers in the earlier days too. Like, oh, really? If I eat this cheeseburger, is that really big of a deal? And it is. It's a huge deal. I remember in the old days, growing up as a kid, I know not a lot of people do this. I drink water out of the hose, right? Turn on the hose, you got the iron ore probably coming right out. Probably wasn't good for me at the time,
Right.
but sometimes I miss those days.
I know we've learned so much and sometimes it can hamper us, but I know firsthand when you're looking at your child, that is the most important thing in the world to you. I'm going to try not to get emotional. And you can see that your child is not thriving. And on top of that, your child is not speaking, but you also see that they've got dark circles under their eyes and they're having regular diarrhea. And I don't think it takes a scientist to think, if I'm trying to learn a language, any language, and I'm any age, and I want to learn a language, I am not the best learner that I can be if I'm having constant diarrhea. And
Absolutely.
if I have headaches, if I don't feel well, and if people are giving me medicine that is not having the effect that it should to help those things, it's not going to set me up for success. And I do love that it is now much more common for us to look at the whole child and say, let's make sure the child is healthy and happy so that they can be the best learner that they can be.
I agree completely with you. That's our goal, right? Our goal is to get something out there as quickly as we can to help out so many people. Again, not just the children and those with autism, it's also those that are the caregivers. How can we help their lives be more manageable too?
And I appreciate that. I do. I think there's a tough line that we're looking at all the people. One of the things I said at the start of the show, our show is meant for the entire autism community, which is people who are on the spectrum and everybody who loves them. And it's difficult because it's not a one-size-fits-all community. And what adults on the spectrum need is so vastly different than what a 2-year-old on the spectrum needs. They're not completely unrelated, but they're just different needs that they have. And I appreciate that right now the research that you're doing is on the teens and the adults, because sometimes we see that those are the gastro issues that come a little bit later in the teen years after puberty that can really have a huge impact. So I love that you're going to get to the 2-year-olds, hopefully. But I don't have a problem with the fact that you're starting with the older ones, because heaven knows they need support too.
It's a huge need. It's a huge unmet need that we're really, really dedicated to try to do. I haven't said enough about our team, honestly. Our founders, our scientific team, our employees, our executive team. And there's very few of us. I mean, we are a very, very focused team. We're extremely dedicated. And I believe every one of our founders and our team have a huge heart to help get this drug to market, to help others. And so that's what we're trying to do.
And, this is a weird question, but a lot of times people will say, is there a personal story attached to it? And you don't have to tell us who, but I would imagine if you've got that group of people together, that some of them must love some people on the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had mentioned earlier, my career in 20 years of this, it's because I have a personal connection to a lot of these things that it's personal to me. Whether it be drugs I've worked on in the past that are in the neuroscience area around depression. I've known, as everyone, people who deal with depression. Oncology, I work with companies from oncology studying new drugs for oncology. My wife is a breast cancer survivor. She's 4 years out now for breast cancer. So that's very emotional to me.
Yeah.
Looking at this to help the NICU and to help autistic individuals who, again, are not getting the attention that they need and deserve. It's a big pull on my heart to do. So, yeah, it's a little personal to me for sure.
It's funny because, obviously I work a lot with Dr. Doreen Graham-Piché, and she's my mentor, and we co-founded the Autism Network. She's amazing, amazing lady. And every Wednesday morning she does a CEO call for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders employees. And this morning, one of the things, she does sort of a mindfulness talk for just a few minutes that's very inspirational to a lot of us. And she was talking today about purpose. And about, when you, some of the studies that show when you lead a purpose-driven life, that you live longer and that there are benefits. You're less likely to have a stroke and less likely to have a heart attack. It sounds like you're living a very purpose-driven life, Jim. I'm wondering, you could say, I don't want to answer this, but I'm wondering to date, what has been like your biggest success that you're the most proud of in terms of your career? Obviously, I know you're proud of your kids.
Yeah, I was going to say careers and life are probably the big things there. I would say in my career, the biggest thing I'm proud of is a couple of drugs I've helped move forward. They haven't officially been launched yet, but they've moved forward to the next level. I think the work I've done with other people around oncology and identifying new potential treatments or new patients to go after are significant. I'm actually the board president of Little Red Door Cancer Agency here in Indianapolis. I've been with the organization for 20 years and the president there. And tomorrow I go cook pancakes for the kids that are doing camp in the city. And so it's those types of things that really makes me proud of my career, because I can go out there. I'm not the scientist. I'm not the PhD. I can't sit here and go into the deep science with you, but I can learn enough to help others. And that's probably the biggest thing I've gotten out of my career, whether it's, again, neuroscience, oncology, microbiome. How can I help others find solutions to any problems that they're going to?
Yeah. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So we're running out of time here, but let's go back and talk a little bit about the company. And for people who are watching and they're like, okay, you got me all excited and now I got to wait. Let's talk a little bit about where they can find you, how they can be watching, how they can stay tuned, how they can stay involved potentially with the company. Where do you want them to go?
So you can look at our website, which is sciotobiosciences.com. We've got a lot of information on there. I'm trying to be active on LinkedIn. You can find us on LinkedIn as well, posting information along those sides. Those are probably the two easiest ways to find us. We've got our publications there. I'm happy to reply to people. They can send an email to info@sciotobiosciences.com, and that will get to me as well. Those are probably the biggest ways to get a hold of us. We were on Twitter at one time, but I pulled us off because it got too political. It got too, I had too much time managing the bad news instead of the good stuff coming through. So we just had to stop the Twitter feed for a while.
Yeah, I hear that. It's hard to be on all of them and do the work you're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
I will openly admit that I am not good at LinkedIn. It's like I can do this many shows or I can be good at LinkedIn, and I chose. It's done.
Yep.
I've given up. But I want to cycle back to, I know you're looking for funding, and I know you're looking for big funding. So for the community, if they think that they know somebody who might want to be involved, same thing, info at Scioto?
Absolutely. You send that to me. I'm happy to follow up. I can give the numbers if people want the numbers. Right now, drug development's not cheap. I'm just going to say that. But we're in Indiana. We're not on the coast. We have a very small team. We're very focused. To get everything done, we're trying to raise between 25 and 30 million. That's going to seem like a lot of money to people. But if you look at some of these other areas, they're raising $50, $150, $200 million just to do a phase 1 study. We've already made it past that, and we've only done that on 16 million, which is unheard of. But again, we try to stay very focused on what we're doing and get the answers that people really want to hear and need, not try to do a shotgun approach to everything.
Yeah.
And so but again, to do a 140 patient study across 25, 26 sites in the United States, and to give drug every single day for 3 months, the statistical reporting, the shipping and so forth, it's going to be somewhere between 25 and 30 million. So that's the big hurdle that we're kind of overcoming. And that's why when we talk about the crowdfunding, it's great. I know people want to help from that standpoint, but we really need someone that maybe is a high net worth individual, someone that knows 10 people that are willing to come together, and I can introduce them to other people and we can put this money together. That's probably the biggest way. But the info at Scioto Biosciences is a great way to contact me on that.
Okay, amazing. And encourage people to keep an eye out. If somebody is very motivated and they know that they have a 12-year-old that they would like to be involved in the study, same thing, info at...
Absolutely. We will be posting it like crazy. We have met with several foundations, several centers. They have said, as soon as you're ready to enroll, let us know. We will broadcast it out. So that's why I'm not worried about the enrollment. We will be blasting it out there. All of our consultants and advisors will be blasting it out there. The sites will be blasting it out there. We actually had a line to get into our phase 1 study because so many people were excited
Yeah.
To go into this type of study. We actually weren't able to take as many as we wanted to because we could only take 15. So we had to turn people away.
Right. I think you're going to end up doing that with 152. I think that's just a reality. Well,
which would be great, right? The faster we enroll, the faster we get results, the faster we can get to market.
And then what's the phase after that? If you do
phase 3, one more study, phase 3 that you would have to enroll. There's a chance we only have to do 1 instead of 2. Depends what the phase 2 looks like, but that's what it would be. There's other ways also around what's called compassionate use that we could look at as well after the phase 2 to continue to provide something to patients once they're off the study. There's a lot of opportunities after that, but again, the big key is getting through the phase 2.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll keep a good thought, and clearly you're the guy to get it done, Jim. So go get it done.
Well, it's me and my team, Shannon. I will say that I have a fantastic team all around me, both consultants and employees. I love them all to death, and they do a great job for us all.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing more about it, and hoping and keeping our fingers crossed that you're able to do it quickly.
Yep, and I'm happy to come on anytime to let you know how things are going.
Well, let us know when you got something new to report, and we'll be happy to find time for you. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank everybody at your team.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time.
All right, you take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We've got just a couple of minutes here at the end, and so I wanted to talk just a little bit in terms of for Lucy with the leaky gut, because I brought up some things and I want to make sure that people know, because I said them really fast. You can go to any pediatrician and have a conversation. I just know that for a lot of you, if you go to your just run-of-the-mill pediatrician and you say leaky gut, it's a crapshoot, right? They may or may not know what you're talking about, and they may or may not know about tests to order or what to look for or what questions to ask you. This is why we bring up MEDMAPS, MEDMAPS.org. There was just to give you a little bit of backstory, many years ago, there was an organization, and half of it was science and research, and the other half of it were pediatricians and doctors who had a particular interest in autism. And they were all under one umbrella. And that organization was called DAN. It was a very controversial name, and they decided that they didn't like the association with the name anymore. And there was a split that they decided they would be more productive working in 2 separate entities. And so there is now the science research part of it is the Autism Research Institute. And I think if you go to autism.com, I think they're the ones that got it, right? That you will be able to find out what they're researching and what they're doing. ARI, we've had Steve Edelson on the show before. Very reputable organization, do amazing things. And the part that became a separate entity, I don't mean to say split off, because it wasn't like they're not speaking to each other anymore. It's not that kind of a split, but it was just, we're going to move faster and more efficiently as a group of people. The pediatricians went to the side and they renamed under medmaps.org. They are a group of people who get together on a regular basis and share what they're working on and what they do. They are a very varied group of people. I always say to people that you should do your due diligence and your research, because some of the people that are in there are, for instance, they're pediatricians. I know there's one that's in California, amazing doctor, but he's a sports medicine person, but he had a particular interest in autism. And so he had part of a practice that was MedMaps, where he was helping support families. Some of them are neurologists. Some of them are, nutritionists. They all have different backgrounds. So you really want to be looking at the different doctors and see who you'd like to go to, who follows your philosophy, have a conversation with them. The issue with MedMaps is they tend to be very expensive, and often your insurance won't pay for the things, the types of studies and tests that they're going to order for your child. So I always like to give people an upfront about that. And different doctors have different specialties. Like, there are some doctors that they really focus on yeast overgrowth, right? There are other doctors that will focus on, seizures, things of that nature. There are doctors who are particular proponents of hyperbaric oxygen tanks, right? So it's really up to you as a parent. You can go to their website, medmaps.org, and they will list who the doctors are, and they will list where they are in the world. And I don't know if they tell a little bit more about them, but it really is incumbent upon you as a parent to do the research on, is this the right doctor? And I'm going to give you a little bit of a jump start by telling you to visit TACA. TACA now.org. That stands for the Autism Community in Action, with the word now after it, TACA now.org. And find a local support group, but they also have coffee talks that are a little bit more global. And you can also sign up for, they just came back online recently after they just went through a whole restructuring, excuse me. But they have TACA mentors, and they are free to you. That you can, these are parents that have been through biomedical treatment, and they've gone through training, and they are available for a period of time to help you to get started and answer your questions. It's free. It's a really amazing resource. You can talk with that person and say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a doctor. Here are the things that are going on with my child. I'm looking for a doctor who deals with this, and they can help you to figure out who might be the best. I know everybody always asks me who is my favorite. The doctor that we used did not make the leap from the original organization, Dan, to, and I think he's since retired, but I'll tell you, if I had it to do over again, I say it all the time because I'm like his biggest fan. But Dr. David Berger in Florida, we've had him on the show many times. Look up the videos that we've done with him. I just love how he talks. I love what he says. That's me. That's me. That's who I would pick. You get to pick who is your right person. I will tell you that I don't love them all equally. Let me say that. Just because it's personalities, right? There are some people that I'm like, I could never have them be my doctor. And I'm not going to use names. But there was one doctor that somebody had recommended to me, and that we were going to start the process of seeing him. And somebody else who knows me really well pulled me aside and said, this is not the doctor for you. And I said, really? Why? I heard that he's really amazing and fantastic. And they said, he is very much, it's his way or the highway, and you're not the kind of person who's going to deal well with that. And I was like, oh no, you're absolutely right. So they are expensive. I would encourage you to do research before you pick one. And I also was very mindful when we were doing this kind of thing of the fact that I had to have the right pediatrician too, because I didn't go looking for a pediatrician who already knew all this. I went looking for a pediatrician who was open to it, that I could call and say, hey, we're taking this medicine that has a known, potential side effect for this. And I need you to mark it in the chart so that if something happens that you can be aware. And that, my friends, made a huge difference because first of all, I had a pediatrician who was working step by step with us, and was listening to me, but was also curious. He was like, I want to learn. So that was the right pediatrician for me. And I got to tell you, nothing better than having the right pediatrician. Before that, we did not have the right pediatrician, and it was constantly like this, right? So I encourage you, get yourself a really good pediatrician. Check out the medmaps.org site. Look around, see who you might be interested in, but then go to TACA. Go to TACA, talk with them. Talk with them about what your goals are. Talk with them about which doctor you're interested in. See what they have to say, whether it might be a good fit for you. So there's a couple of resources for you. I also want to mention that TACA has 2 conferences a year. They do an online conference in the spring right now, and in the fall they do an in-person conference. It's in October. It's usually the middle week in October. And it is always in Orange County, so it's really close to Disneyland. And I don't know who their keynote speaker is this year, but it's a 3-day conference. And if you're in the state of California, the regional center will pay for the conference fees for the tickets to be able to go. And it's like the least expensive conference of all. So I really encourage you. Often they have MedMap's doctors there to answer questions. And they have mentors there to answer questions. It's a great, great conference. So just throwing that out there to answer. That's if you have questions about leaky gut, that's where I would go, Lucy, totally. And we'll see about having Lisa or Moira or somebody on the show again to talk about leaky gut. All right, you guys, we're out of time. I'm so glad that we had this time to be here, and I hope that it was informational for you. I think tomorrow we're going to be showing best ofs, or will we stop that for July? Yes, we are going to be showing that. So watch tomorrow for a best of Autism Live, and on Friday a best of Ask Dr. Doreen. We'd love to know, is that good for you guys? Is that helpful, or is it just, whatever? Let us know. But then on Monday, we have rescheduled. We were supposed to have Dr. Jed Baker, who I love. Oh my gosh, do I love Dr. Jed Baker for so many different reasons. But I got to meet him, and he's just the real deal, you guys. He's just fabulous, and he just has such a heart for our community, especially our teenage kids. Oh my goodness. We've had to reschedule with him. I think we're doing Let's Talk Movies with Moira, so maybe we can have her talk a little bit about leaky gut on Monday. Then on Tuesday, we have Dr. Doreen again, and on Wednesday, I think that's actually the Wednesday afternoon interview. But we've got a great guest on Wednesday morning. I'll get back to you on what that is. But great. Wait till you see some of the things that we have coming up. We have Dr. Andy Bondi is going to be joining us in August. That is huge. If you don't know about Dr. Andy Bondi, he is the person who really revolutionized picture exchange communication system. He's royalty. I'm so excited about him being on the show. We've got an amazing mom, Mary Jane White, is going to be joining us talking about her son's journey because he is, I think every parent's dream, right? He was diagnosed with autism very young, had intensive early intervention with Dr. Graham Pichet's team at CARD, and is now an international speaker, has multiple PhDs, you know what I'm saying. And so Mary Jane, she's a very hard person, but she's written a book that I want you guys to know about. She's actually written 2 books. One is a book of poems, and the other one is about the process of going through the treatment with her son. So that interview is coming up. We've got some really good stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks, you guys. So we'll see you then. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.